So we're going on a journey together from the mind and the heart. Our primary guidebooks are A Course of Miracles and A Course of Love. They're not, however, our only tools. In addition to these, although they're primary, we'll be looking at shamanism, out of which there's a lot of growth, mysticism, which is a background for so much of the courses, the direct path, which I'll talk a little bit more about this evening. In particular, we're going to look at the direct path, contemporary physics, transpersonal psychology, and psychedelic research. So this is Helen and Bill, our great Helen, of course, the great scribe. You probably most all know that Helen entered, and Bill, but Helen primarily introduced me to the course in Ken Wapnick's apartment in April 1975, so just over 50 years ago. And then Mari Perron began to receive her book in 1998 through 2001 or 2002 when it got published. And I had a chance to work with Mari as well. Met her at first in 2009. This is a picture of us taken by a fun at somebody said do this, put your backs up against each other at the conference in San Francisco. So we did, we were just playing. So Mari's been an active student of the course. She read it through 7 times. She says she came to the heart by setting her mind out of the way. Mari had a dream in which she heard, you can no longer sell yourself for money. Your mind belongs to God. She quit her job. She was working at the University of Minnesota, and she kept hearing, there's something coming. Do you ever hear there's something coming? There's something coming, right? She opened her Course in Miracles at random and saw the words, help is here. I think that's in chapter 12. Feeling guided, she attended early morning mass at her Catholic church. I think probably just so to get her mind in a quiet set so that she'd become more receptive. And then she heard, trust in God and give it all you got. And then beginning on December 1st, 1998, she began to receive A Course of Love. And I might say that Mari herself is a love. You just can't be around her very long without falling in love yourself. All right? So, of course, also says that this is a manual for a special curriculum intended for teachers of a special form of the universal course. There are many thousands of other forms, all with the same outcome. So there are many thousands. And of course there are many thousands because there's billions of people on this planet, and we're all going to be working in different kind of cultures and backgrounds and settings. So it's going to come to us how it's going to come to us. Actually, A Course in Miracles and A Course of Love are a really tiny fraction of what's available right now. One of the things that interests me a great deal is what is the universal course? So with that in mind, I've begun to work on a book on what is the universal course. And this is by starting here, by seeing how these 2 books fit in with the universal course. So the universal language, so A Course in Miracles prepares the ground. This is one way to look at it. And A Course of Love invites us to walk on it together. A Course in Miracles is a mind training, a lot of mind training. It says so, I think it's like on first page of chapter 2. It says, chapter 2. It says this is a course in mind training, all right? And A Course of Love is a heart-led living. So we're getting more into living what we've been trained to hear. A Course of Love is a correction. A Course of Love is an expression, helping us to live in truth. A Course in Miracles restores Christianity's lost mystical mind. A Course of Love restores its lost mystical heart. And together they complete a trajectory. Mystical Christianity began, but traditional Christianity kind of got lost in fearful solidification and concretizing of regulations and rules and restrictions. And you may know, or you probably do, that the church is dying now very, very rapidly. I've been listening to a book as I'm exercising on the death of the church, and it's very rapid. And I think part of the reason is because of this rules and regulations and concretizing and restrictions that get placed on people, and then they have trouble with that. And that's not going to be true here. This is, of course, in learning, but it's not putting, there's no organization, there's no higher organization, there's no hierarchy, there's nobody up at the top, there's no bishops, no archbishops, nothing like that. So we're learning along the way, and that's all we got here. These are training manuals, and that's all we need. So A Course in Miracles is like a long apprenticeship, retraining perception step by step. And that happens, of course, as you know, with the 365 lessons. So you've got 365 lessons, and you can't really say that you've really completed the course until you got through those lessons. And then you may or may not, depends on you, go through them again. I still read through them every morning, just to, not necessarily going to take every 5 minutes to stop and meditate, but just to see what the message is. This is a little reminder. So A Course of Love says, now live what you already are. Let's put these principles into practice. Let's be the love that you are, and begin to live a life that I like to call lucid, to live a lucid life. What I mean by living a lucid life is that it's a life in which you're awake. It's like, if this is a dream, you're now awake within the dream. So you see the dream, you see the play, you see the soap opera, and you make a very simple decision. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to get into this gossipy stuff. I'm not going to attack anybody. I'm not going to talk about how awful things are. I'm just going to learn how to live here without all that insanity. So the heart and the mind joined in union accomplish the reunion of the separated self with God. That's from A Course of Love, obviously. So the difference is here, the heart is the feeling, the feeling level, and it's going to tell us things. We're going to get feelings about it. What is it that falls in love? It's the heart that falls in love first, right? It's something that pulls us in a particular direction. The mind is something which helps us to think things through and figure things out and segregate and separate and put things back together again and to grow in that way. But we really need both. You can't have just one. All right? So A Course in Miracles, just a little bit about the facts on it, is right about 365 words, and it's in 3 documents: textbook, workbook, and the teacher's manual. A Course of Love is just over 180,000 words in 3 documents. So just about, the Course of Miracles is about double. So if you multiply 180 by 2, you get 360. So it's almost twice the size. And it consists also of A Course of Love, a treatise, and the dialogues. They seek to guide us back to one-mindedness, God, self, or in A Course of Love's words, wholeheartedness. To give you an idea, the differences here, the word ego appears 1,208 times in A Course in Miracles. Of course, it's twice the size, but that's 3 times more than it appears in A Course of Love. So the Course of Love is beginning to move away from too much repetition about what the ego is all about. That we're trying to get free of, and now we're going to go into living this lucid life. So both redefine and refine traditional Christian terms and ideas concerning such things as sin, punishment, the atonement. Neither book is tied to any organized religion, and I don't think ever will be. So we'll also be looking at the direct path. The direct path I find is very interesting. We'll talk more about that. What that's saying is that the truth can be known directly. It's not achieved over time. Awakening is not earned through effort or through spiritual striving, but instead happens through recognition, to seeing it. Now I might add, so we talk about later today, I may get around to next week maybe, the difference between what we call a progressive path and the direct path. So A Course in Miracles and A Course of Love are both progressive paths up until you get near the end of this thing, and then you come to a direct path. And the direct path says, you're already home, you're already there, you already got this. So now you have to see it to be it. So this is like what happens when Jesus, I think, goes off into the wilderness, and he does his 40 days and 40 nights of a deep, deep dive down inside to take a good look at himself and what's going on. And fortunately, what he comes up with is that he's the Christ. He gives the mind fully over. Having given the mind fully over, he then comes back from that experience and he begins to teach. There's no teaching until after the wilderness experience. And by the way, in the Bible it says, after his baptism by John the Baptist in the River Jordan, the next line is, after that, after the baptism, he was led by the Holy Spirit into the wilderness. Now that says he was led by the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit plays a very important role in both of our books, especially in the Course in Miracles, in terms of being this guide who's there literally all the time, 360, just like the radio waves going around in this room right now. If I would turn a radio on, a message would immediately start coming through. The Holy Spirit's like that. It's always there, always talking to you. But it's a really good idea to be able to listen, which is one of the purposes for meditation, or if it's not that you're deliberately sitting down to meditate, at least having other times, maybe just when you're working and you're looking for an idea. Or one of the things I like to do is to not jump up early in the morning, but just to lay there. The mind is clean from the night's rest and clearer and more receptive at that particular time. And just look and just give it a chance to see if something's not coming to you before you start with all the busyness of the day. So A Course in Miracles then is a shift in perception. A Course of Love is a return to the heart's knowing. And the direct path immediately noticing of awareness. You see it. It's right there. You are so very close to passing by, giving up on the insanity, giving up on the ego, and accepting who you already are. You're already there. Okay. So according to A Course in Miracles, A Course of Love, and the Direct Path, our true identity is already whole. Our task is not to become something new, rather do we remember ourself in eternity. This is an illusory dream world. This world is an illusory world. The whole thing is actually a dream. So again, we're remembering, we're bringing the mind back home. To become conscious of the truth, awakening from the dreaming of the world, we find nothing is missing, broken, or sinful. The Course in Miracles calls this Christ. The Course of Love calls this the self of love. And the Direct Path calls it awareness of being. Expressions of self-love is the natural state of being of those who have moved beyond learning to creating through unity and relationship from A Course of Love. Right? So again, we're looking to remember or recognize. It really is that. And as you do this work, as you do the Course in Miracles, you should have aha experiences. You should have revelatory experiences. You should have experiences where you're going, oh yeah, and they fit together. And that's fun when the ideas begin to fit together and you see. This is from A Course in Miracles. This is, offer the Holy Spirit only your willingness to remember. This is not so much a matter of learning as it is a matter of remembering. It says, for he retrains the knowledge of God and of yourself for you, waiting for your acceptance. Give up gladly everything that would stand in the way of your remembering, for God is in your memory. So if I get all caught up and trapped in the world and worrying about the world and about politics and about wars and about all that stuff going on out there, it's a huge distraction. And it's so easy to get pulled or to seduce into that kind of thing. One of my favorite lessons in the Course is 268, which says, let all things be exactly as they are. Or getting into the kind of the eye of the hurricane or the eye of the storm, just that where it's perfectly still and quiet and you're okay and you can see and you know the truth, despite the fact that things are kind of going crazy in the world around. And that seems to be something we're having a real good experience of right now. It says, his voice will tell you what you are, that you are part of him, when you are willing to remember him and know your own reality again. Let nothing in this world delay you remembering him, for in this remembering is the knowledge of yourself. To remember him is to remember Christ, to remember not just the Christ, but to remember yourself as a part of the Christ mind. So, A Course in Miracles teaches us how to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. This is the work. And there's a lot of blocks, things that get in the way. And so we literally, imagine we got a wall made out of cement blocks, right? And there's a name on each of the blocks. So we got to go along and take that block out of the way, or remove that block from the mind, so we begin to see beyond the wall, beyond the thing that's blocked. My anger's blocking me, my attack thoughts are blocking me. Whatever it is, the petty stuff that's blocking me from being able to see and to hear what the Holy Spirit has to share. So, of course, this of love asks us to be the love we are now, to be lucid in our living, become aware of the dream within the dream, and rather than get caught in the story, we choose to awaken from the dreaming of the world to a higher vision above the battlefield. So A Course in Miracles is training the mind. A Course in Love is trusting the heart. Love must be first in all things. God is love. Love is God. It's a tautology. Last night, as I was doing some polishing on this image came into mind, so I had AI create it for me. It's a wonderful thing that this AI thing can do for you. So this is God is love, and how do I know God? I know God by being in love, by giving my love away, by loving whatever is the people around me, my pets, the nature, life itself, right? By throwing myself into it. So God is love, love is God, God is love. It just keeps going, right? It works that they generate, one generates the other. So the more we know of love, which we can understand, but we know what that is because we experience that. But the more it's something that you have, it's something you have, and it's something you also have to give. You've got to give it away. And if you give it away, then that's how you begin to experience the abundance of love, because it will come back to you instantaneously as you give it away. You feel good because you give it, and the other, whoever you're giving it to, feels good because they receive it. And so this is such a simple process. But if I give my anger, if I give my attack thoughts to the world, that's going to also come back my way. Course in Miracles says, the most basic law there is in the universe is the law of cause and effect. What goes around comes around. So watch out what I'm giving that way to us well. So, of course, this is to be lifted up, and from a higher place look down. From there, your perspective will be quite different. Here, in the midst of it, it does seem real. How can a battle be perceived as nothing when you're engaged in it? That's obviously, you see all the fighting and stuff that's going on the news, and you think, if you're in the middle of that, then of course it looks very real, because it is real in that particular sense. That's what's going on with it. But we got to be able to get beyond that. To first of all, not even want to be engaged in that insanity. So, reality is internally generated. Experience is not caused by the world, but by the mind consciousness itself. So A Course in Miracles talks about this as projection makes perception. I'm going to stop after this slide and we'll come back and talk about that a little bit more. The world is an outward picture of an inner condition. That is such an important concept in the Course. You are always making up the world by judging the world, by analyzing the world, by interpreting the world. And the ego loves to do that. It loves to interpret. And of course, the love experience arises from the movement of consciousness through form, and the direct path, the world appears in awareness. It's not separate from it. So the core of A Course in Miracles, the Course of Love, and the direct asks us to change the inner state, and the world will change. So the world you see is what you gave it. We're always making up the world by judging it, analyzing it, interpreting. Nothing more than that. But though it's not more, it's not less, therefore to you it's important. It is a witness to your state of mind. It's an outside picture of an inner condition. As a man thinketh, so does he perceive. Seek not to change the world. Very important. Choose to change your mind about the world. Perception is a result and not a cause. So there's somebody that you can't forgive, for example, right? Or that some wrong was done to you. And maybe it was. But then you got to really look at that and you think, why am I caught in that? Why am I trapped in that? Why am I not able to forgive this other individual for being who they are? I don't agree with it, but why am I putting this heaviness onto them and onto myself, because I got an unforgiveness that's going on inside myself. And that is why order of difficulty in miracles is meaningless. It doesn't make any difference how big the issue is or how small the issue is or whatever it is. Everything looked upon with vision is healed and holy. That's what Janine did. She looked upon this. She had a different vision. She saw it from the Holy Spirit's perspective. Nothing perceived without it means anything, and where there is no meaning, there is chaos. There is chaos inside us as long as we are unable to change the way we see to being able to love what we see. So according to A Course in Miracles and A Course of Love, awakening is a recognition, not an achievement. Separation is a lesson of the ego learned and unreal. The differences are primarily in pedagogy, in other words, in terms of how we learn. For example, while it would be a good idea to go through the workbook of A Course in Miracles, it's not a requirement. If you're picking up the Course of Love, you haven't done the Course in Miracles, that's not a sin. And never will be. And you don't have to. It probably is a good idea. The Course in Miracles, those workbook lessons are a real training ground. But again, it's not a have to. Let's go to our next slide. So, this is German mystic Meister Eckhart. So, there's so much in Christian mysticism that is in keeping with the Course in Miracles and the Course of Love. Not in traditional Christianity, but in Christian mysticism. And probably the most famous of the medieval Christian mystics, without doubt, is Meister Eckhart, who says, "The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me." And the Course in Miracles says, "I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me." Of course, it says, "You are not becoming who you are remembering who you always have been." That's the way I started talking about this evening. You always have been there. You already know all of this. And the direct path says you are already there if you can see it. You know, it may be that every once in a while you can see it. By see it, I mean you can see that you're already there. You can see that this whole thing is already done, that you're actually at home in God. If you get to that, so what happens with the Jesus is that Jesus is able to live there, to live from that space. And if you're beginning to see it, that's a very good sign that we're on the way to making that final commitment. Like the ego says, no, you can't possibly make that commitment to the truth, to all the way, because if you did that, then I'm out of business. I mean, the ego is out of business, right? So, A Course in Miracles and A Course of Love are pointing to the same realization. Using different language and teaching styles, they share one core message to be distilled to this: we are not bodies. Be glad, bodies are very heavy. That's one of the most frequent line in the Course in Miracles. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. It's almost as though the body is holding us down. Now that is, don't go doing away with your body. You've got one, and you're here in it for a purpose. I mean, there's a reason for being here, and we should go ahead and learn what we need to learn, and also be very grateful for the day that sometime you're going to be able to step away from it with this whole new vision and understanding. In the same sense that we're also not egos. You're not a body. The body is the ego's chosen home. That's the Course in Miracles. That's where the ego lives. So we're very caught up in these bodies, how they look and how they feel, and whether they got pains or prestige and all that sort of stuff. Eventually, we'll be transcending that whole thing. I don't mind sharing with you that many years ago, 50-something years, almost 50, 49 years ago, I had a shamanistic near-death experience, which was really a loss. It was of the ego identity. It was terrifying because everything disappeared. By what I mean, name, body, identity, work, what do you do, family, planet Earth, space-time, everything. And that was such a horrible. But once you get through, once you see that will all need to be let go of at some point. That is a temporary label that we all have, but in eternity it far transcends a moment in time. So A Course in Miracles is both a progressive path and the direct path. It's a progressive path because, well, first of all, just to do those 365 lessons, that's progressive. You're going through, you can begin to see the progression that's in the Course the more that you get further down. There is a reason why 1 is 1 and 365 is 365. It's leading you someplace very clearly. It's all perfectly designed by a perfect designer, if you will, right? The Course says, the ego is nothing more than a part of your belief about yourself. Your other life, this is very important, your other life is continued without interruption. That's why I keep saying, you're already there. And this life is then the dream that we are awakening from. So if you can get to that vision, to that point, to see that it's true, that takes away some of the vivacity and insanity of this particular life and this particular dream. To move on, both courses are trying to help us to move to the self, capital S, self, that you really are, and again, that you always have been. Right? So for this reason, the whole life is a dream. Dying doesn't mean the disappearance of the whole mind. It's a remembrance of who we are in truth. We awaken, we see that this life was the dream. Kind of like now seeing our childhood as a dream. It happened once upon a time in a land far, far away. That's a bit of my experience of what, once you let go of this body and step away from this world, it's going to be like that. I'm suggesting it's like we can all remember, right? There was a time that you were a child and you had certain kinds of experiences during that time. That's a fading memory. I mean, the further we get away from it, the more it seems to fade, but it was very real at the time you were going through that particular experience. Well, what happens if we step away from the whole form of the thing? Step out of the time. One of the things I want to talk about in coming weeks is the whole illusion of space and time, which we'll get to that in good time. And this is from A Course of Love now. Union is impossible without God. God is union. That's why we're going home. Right? That's why it feels like you're going home. You're going back to God. Is this not like saying God is love? We're going back to love. Love is impossible without union. The same is true of a relationship. God creates all relationships. That's the whole thing about being in love in relationship. When you think of a relationship, you think of one relationship and then another. The one you share with the friend or that husband or wife, with child, employer, or parent. And thinking in these specific terms, you lost the meaning of the holy relationship. Relationship itself is holy. All relationships are holy. And we can let go of those that seem to be, and we can heal, but that's the way we let go. We heal relationships that seem to be driving us crazy. Here's a couple of guys that are pretty happy to see each other. Friend, perceiving in one mind, the difference between the ego's projection and the Holy Spirit's extension is very simple. The ego projects to exclude and therefore deceive. The Holy Spirit extends by recognizing himself in every mind and thus perceives them as one. That's we are. We are all. It doesn't matter who the other person is or how wrong you think they are or how different they may look or whatever it is. It's your brother, it's your sister, and we're all here the same. And don't forget, even in the darkest looking place, there's a light in there somewhere. The task is to be able to reach down in there and to find that light and to bring that light back to life again.